All right, welcome everybody. It's Chris Petrie here. Hey, we're gonna have the best time here ever. We're doing the second painting. We're doing this just during the weekend. We're creating two paintings. Beautiful colonial row house. The first painting we did was a black and white ink and wash rendition of that of this here, which is the same as this. So we created this first, actually last night, and then now the next day we're going in and we're going to paint color. So we're going to do that. We're going to actually transition over to the darker and more vibrant colors using our watercolor palette that we always use on camera. So that's going to be on camera at all times, as well as this photograph and this painting. We're going to do everything, the whole thing, the whole enchilada, the whole soup to nuts, everything completed. We'll show you the drawing, how to get the layout correct. We're going to even do a couple little quick tidbits of information on how you can make your painting go quicker. With your drawing. If you already have one completed, then you can take this one, which you did, and transfer your pencil drawing over much quicker by using a couple little tidbits of information I'm going to show you that are really going to make your life a lot easier. You can do it a lot quicker than starting from scratch and trying to redraw everything again from the beginning. Okay, so we're going to give you all this information as well as finishing it up and getting all the beautiful details in, the trees, the branches, the leaves, the springtime look here with the blue sky and the leaves and the sunlight and the shadowing. We have everything here. We're going to start in just a second. Don't worry about a thing. We're going to get this painting done efficiently, quickly, and we're having a lot of fun as we do it. All right, be right back. All right, so we're moving right along here, and we have our original painting we just did actually a day ago. We created this black and white, of course, of the same scene. Again, you've seen the finished the painting that we just did now, which is we're going to be completing in this video, and that's the color version of this. We're going to be using, of course, the reds and the oranges and the blues. We're going to use all of our colors actually in our palette to create the color version like this. So we're going from a black and white version where we kind of started out keying in on the light, the darks and lights, and the medium tones, the feel of sunlight with that bright white paper, the shutters, everything. You can kind of see the bright white of the paper, the shadows underneath the eaves and underneath the cornice up top on the top of the building here, this beautiful row house, this apartment building. So now we're going to go to the next level and take it and create a color version of this, like an authentic watercolor version. So since we have our first version that we did, you could always go back to this video and check it out and kind of see how we did the black and white version. But I'm going to do it over again too, so we're going to redraw this. But the only thing different is if you did create this on the first try when we did this video just a day ago, and then you're going to try the color version, well, then you can use your original copy that you did here, your original composition that you created. You can work from this, and we're going to show you how to do that. So this would work for any painting that you have. If you want to make multiple versions of your painting, you want to kind of keep the same design and same drawing, but you just might want to change the color schemes a little bit, do a little bit of work regarding that. Well, that's fine. We can use this drawing and then transfer it right over to here. So that's what we're going to do. But this is the end game on this video. We're going to get this color version on this paper here. But we have to draw it first. So we have to get the pencil drawing on here from here to here. And then we'll do our beautiful full color version of this scene. All right. So I'll just set my phone to the side right now. And we'll just find that it's going to be an easier time transferring it like this with a ruler across. Maybe we'll use a couple rulers. I think I will use a few rulers, but we'll use a T-square ruler. I have a T-square ruler like this. Maybe I'll use my metal ruler like this here. I have a stainless steel metal ruler like this. We can use this too as well. And you'll see how great this works. So maybe the first thing we'll do is we'll start from the top, and we'll just transfer this first line over from here, the top of the building, the very tippy top of the rooftop of this row house apartment building. We're going to go right across like that, and we'll get the top of the building like that. So we kind of see that it's like this. and we'll make it level across the picture like that. Then next what we'll do is we'll measure and see how far in from the ends or the edges of this painting the building is. And from what I recall yesterday, 1 centimeter here and about 1.5 centimeters. So we'll just do the same thing. 1 centimeter, or you can use the inches, of course, the standard. This would be 1/2 inch, approximately 1/2 inch in. Make a dot. That's the edge of your building right here where the cornice is at the top of the building. And then we go over here and we measure this and we say, yeah, that's about the same thing. Yeah, 1/2 inch. So we come over here and we go 1/2 inch in from this way here. Put a dot there, and then we have our edge here like that. And then we kind of just look and see how thick that first portion of the cornice is. And it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, so I'll just kind of, look at it and say that's about good, like this. 1/8 of an inch approximately. And then you can kind of see we have that first line up here started, and this feels good when you get that first line going and you start out, you start to have that feeling of, okay, this is going good. We're going to just work our way from the top down this way, and then we will make a couple marks for the entire size of the cornice. And that is, if we use the standard measure, that's 5/8 of an inch. So if I say 5/8 of an inch there, 5/8 of an inch here, like that. And if you want to use centimeters, that's going to be about 1.5 centimeters from the top here down to here. And then we'll make a line across like this. And that'll be the full height of the cornice at the top of the building. And you'll see that there is, at the cornice, it corbels out. So I'm just going to do some steps in the cornice like this. Just some improv, a couple of just stepwise fashion lines. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then we'll do some more lines across. So we have, if we look here on our drawing, our original, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines across. So we'll try to aim for 5. If we get 4 or 6, we'll be okay. All right, so the next one underneath this one here is like so. Then we have another one under there. That's going to be the dental trim on the cornice. And if you did follow along on this first one, this is going to be so much easier for you to create this painting. But if not, no big deal. We're going to be doing it again. We're doing it again right now. We're doing it over a second time. It's great to practice our skills and go over these things over and over and over again. It makes our life easier as an artist. Does that make sense? The more you practice, the better and the easier it gets, and then it looks better too because you're more relaxed. If you're kind of stressed trying to do something for the first time, your painting is going to look like it's a little tight. If you're going to want to have looser paintings and looser drawings and paintings, if you just practice them over and over again, like you could do this painting 10 times, and I guarantee you each time you do it, whether you're doing the black and white or the color or different variations in your color schemes for your building, each time you do it, it's going to get a little bit easier, a little bit more fun, a little better, and you'll notice by the 10th time you do it, the 10th one's going to look probably the best out of the most of them. You'll see some fluctuations, obviously, but what I'm getting at is if you're more familiar with something, like the subject matter and the composition and what you're doing, it's going to be easier for you. You'll feel more relaxed, and it'll look that way. The drawing, the painting, it's going to look more relaxed, more loose. And then we'll do one more. So maybe we added one like that. Okay, so that's not too bad. How many do we wind up with? I think 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6. All right, so this one was how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so it's about the same. So we're on track for the cornice looks just perfect. And then we go down 2 levels. 1, 2, and then the next one, the third one down from the top, that's our dental moldings. And then all we do is we just make some approximately 1/8 of an inch squares right across. You just have to make your vertical lines like this. Doesn't have to be perfect, but maybe about an eighth, well, maybe a little more than an eighth of an inch. What are we looking at here? Yeah, it's about an eighth of an inch for each of these lines, give or take. Doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and that's going to be the dental molding that's on our cornice. And the rest are just basically more regular trim pieces that are not really too ornate. Okay. Okay, so now let's get the building vertical lines of the outside walls here. And we said that in our this painting, we talked about how we're going to make it a little bit of an angle like this. So if you can imagine, we're not going to make it perfectly straight. We're going to put a little bit of an angle on this brick front of this apartment building, this row house, because we did talk about it in the first video. If you're if you're in the city, if you're in any city basically, or even like a small city or a large city, if you see a large, I'll do a dramatic point of what I'm trying to get at here is, if you're looking at a really tall, like let's say a skyscraper that's like 100 stories high, when you look at it from ground level, if you're standing right here and looking up at it, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see that it tapers up like this. Everything's going to go up like this. So in this painting, I wanted to just capture that a little bit. So if we just put that little bit of an angle on these outside walls here, both sides, a little bit of an angle like this, I'm kind of, making it a little more dramatic like this. We won't put that much angle on it, but you wouldn't want to go perfectly straight. You're going to want to have a touch of angle on it. So that's easy enough. We could do it with a ruler and just really make it simple. So over here we have what, 5/8 of an inch. If we come down here, and we'll transfer this across too, so we have the bottom of our building. So we just put our ruler across here, and we say that's the bottom of the building there, like that. Now, again, we're going to say that was 5/8 at the top, or if we're using metric, we're looking at about a little bit less than 2 centimeters. And so now if we come down here, we're going to want to make it less. So if we have 5/8 up here, let's go in a little bit. Let's go in an eighth of an inch only, half inch here. And then you take that, and that's a lot actually. An eighth of an inch is quite a bit, like that. Then we'll do the same thing. We'll come over here, 2 centimeters, and we'll go 1.5 centimeters like this. And we'll just take that and slide it on over, line it up here with the very, very end of the cornice trim, and we come down to the base at the sidewalk, and there you have it. And you can see that it's got that little bit of a taper to it, but not too overly, dramatic, just a little bit, that eighth of an inch, that's all it is, eighth of an inch. And it makes a big difference. It looks a lot better that way. Okay, and then, all right, over here, I have a little bit less room than over here, I noticed, but that's not going to be an issue. We're just going to put the wall over here like this, like that. And there's a bush over here, like so. Put that there. So we have our bush over here, we have our wall over here, and we're moving right along. So we'll come over here. I think once we get our windows and the features of this main facade here on this portion of the building, then we can add in over here to the right side, which is some other bits of detail we'll want to put on the right side of this building over here on the edge. But we'll do that later. We'll do the main building right now here first. So we're at a really good place right now. We have the building laid out nicely. We have our cornice already on the top of the building set all up. It looks beautiful. That's perfect. It's ready to be painted. And then now we're just going to start working a little bit more on the doors and windows on the facade. And I think after that, we're going to be in great shape. We'll put in the trees, of course, and a few more details, and then we'll be ready to paint. So let's take a quick break. It's always good to take breaks, and I hope you will, because I always mention this. When you take breaks, you get a little bit of a stretch. You get a glass of water, a cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever it is you like to have. You know, you relax a little bit. You come back to your drawing as we're working on our drawing, and it's just a little bit easier, because as we draw and we're thinking and concentrating, we do get a little bit tired. So our brains get a little bit fatigued and a little bit tired. Everyone's different though. So some of you might have great concentration levels where you can work for an hour or 2 or 3 without having to take a break. That's fine. Don't take a break then. You do what you know, you're the artist. You're going to do what you feel comfortable with. Others of you, I myself, I need a break every 15, 20 minutes. I think usually about that. And I feel more comfortable doing it that way, and this way I feel a little more refreshed when I'm coming back and continuing to work. But again, everyone's different, so you do it as you see fit, okay? All right, so let's come right back in a few minutes. We're going to get the windows in, the door, we're going to get the trees in, and then we'll be ready to paint, and that's going to be the most exciting part. We'll take our paints, we'll have our paints on camera, we're going to have our painting on camera like this. So we'll have this over here on the right side. We'll have this a little bit over here. We'll have our palette over here with our paints. And we're going to paint this beautiful red bricks. Oh, and the greens with the little bit of foliage on the trees, the blues, some foreshadows, purples. We're going to have all kinds of beautiful colors working in this painting. This one here, this color version. And then the traditional watercolor version. And again, we had so much fun doing this in the ink and wash. I hope you'll try it if you haven't. Maybe this is your first time here and you didn't even see any of my videos, and this is your first time here at my channel. I'm saying you're at the right place at the right time. We do everything watercolor, and we do some variations. We also do some ink and wash once in a while. We do a few little different things, but most of the time we're always just doing watercolor, and we're doing every kind of subject matter you love. The standard classic watercolors. City scenes, landscapes, flowers, still lifes. We do a little bit of figure painting once in a while, and portrait painting. Also, too, we'll do boats and beaches and all those kind of beautiful seascape scenes. So you are just going to be thrilled. We're going to be right back in a second. We'll continue finishing up the drawing, and we do have a little bit to go yet. But I think we're about halfway there, maybe. Not quite halfway, but, you know, around there, 40% of the way. So we got about 60% more to go to get this all in nice order for our pencil drawing, and then we'll get in and start painting. All right, now we're getting back. I just took a break, and I'm really happy I took the break because I did have a little bit of a brainstorm of an idea. I hope you'll work along with me with this process that I have right now that I was just thinking of. I thought to myself, instead of measuring with a ruler, since we have this already set up and ready to go, we could use this and just take a piece of, I used a piece of printer paper, and I just trimmed a couple thin strips of printer paper, and then what you could do is you could take one side here, like let's say the right side, set it up on the right side of the building, because we already have established this line here. And then you can take that, and then you can line that up on the edge of the building here. And then you can just make hash marks for the trim and the window. And then we can get ourselves our trim and our window. Just like that. So I just come over here, do the same thing, and now I have the trim. Okay, the trim and the windows, like that. And then since I have that, I can just turn this over and then come over here and say, all right, let me get the height of the window. And that's about here, to the bottom of the windowsill. So then now I can use this as my, basically like a ruler, and then get my bottom mark here. I come over here and get the same thing. So now these are the bottoms of the windows, those two little dots I made, right? Bottom of the window, bottom of the window. lined up with the trim that we just created. And then we just simply take our ruler, line up these two lines, the bottoms of the windows, and then we just look up above here and we say, okay, it's about there and about here, the windows. Then we can come back up and finish up, and we could just use this ruler here as pretty much, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you could just use your ruler. You can kind of see if you're like this, that's not going to work, right? If you're trying to draw a window and you have an angle on your ruler like this, you know. So that's the thing. I just try to be a little more dramatic when I'm doing this, because I know some of you might be trying it out for the first time, or first 2 or 3 times, or maybe you haven't done a lot of drawing. Maybe you're just a couple weeks or a couple months following my channel, or you're coming from another channel and you're a new artist. I'm just doing exaggerated things so you kind of get the drift of what I'm saying here. Is you want to just keep your ruler somewhat straight, vertical like this when you do these lines, and you're using these small hash mark lines. I'm hoping you can see them actually. I don't know if you can. So I'll draw these a little bit darker. And the same thing with these two. But again, what we did is we just took a piece of paper and transferred over like this here, these windows. So we just took the edge of the paper, put it on the edge of the building, because we have the edge of the building here as well. And then we just went over and said, okay, here's the edge of the window here. Here's the other trim on the other side of the window. Same thing for this window. And then we take this over here, set this edge of the paper right on the edge of the building, around roughly the middle of the window. And then there we go. We just transfer those little dots on our windows like this. And then we have that. Then we flipped our paper over and said, where are the bottom of the windows here? We took our paper, we used the edge of the paper and brought it up to the cornice and lined up the bottom of the window there and got our line there on our paper. And then we bring it over here, line it up on the bottom of the cornice like this, and there we got it. Bottom there, bottom of the windows over here, the same height. Boom, now we got our 2 hash marks there. Then we just take a ruler and we finish up. We go first across with those 2 dots, get the bottom of your windows roughly, like that. Then come back over and do those quick vertical lines and finish up your window like this. And you can just kind of draw the rest in like so. And then essentially you're just drawing in your window trim, your window sill at the bottom here, and you have the top of your window here like this, like that. So now you have perfect 2 windows up top. Now we'll do the same thing. We'll repeat the process. That's all. Here, what we'll do is I'll take this what I'll do is I'll take this, and since we're already done with this here, I'll scribble out these lines so we don't get confused on what lines we're working with. Okay, so we scribbled out the lines that we use for the top windows. Now we're going with the bottom windows. So then we'll do the same thing. We'll come over here, line up the edge of the paper to the edge of the building over here, and I'll come down to the bottom of the window because I can see all the shutters and the windows. So now here we have a shutter and a shutter and a shutter and a shutter. And then here we have another shutter here, shutter here, shutter here, and a shutter here. The edges of the shutters, like this, like that. That would be the bottom of them, let's say, just to have that as a. So now we can come over here and do the same thing, line up the edge. The only thing is we do need here, we'll just use our ruler so we don't make it too difficult. Let's say, what's the distance between the bottom of this window and the top of this window? Simple enough. We take our ruler and we say 1 inch. Okay, 1 inch we have there. We make a hash mark 1 inch, and then another hash mark 1 inch. All right, that's the top of our windows. And we can even take our ruler for the top of the windows and maybe just make a little bit of a hash mark there, like that, to get started. Then we're going to come over here And again, we're going to use this edge here, put it on the edge of the building line that we already drew in over here. We know this is the tops now of the windows, so we bring this up to the tops like this, and then we already see that we have the hash marks here for the shutters like this, right? And then over here, same thing. Shutter here. There's a shutter over here like so. Like that. So you have your shutters. Okay, and then you just come down here. But first we need to have the height of these windows. 3 centimeters, or if you're using the standard measurements, 1 inch and 1/8. So I'll go here, 1 inch and 1/8. Bottom of the window. 1 inch, 1/8. Bottom of the window, I come across. Like that for the windows. And then again, I'm going to use the same kind of thing before. Doesn't have to be perfect. Let's get our shutters in there. Drawing my pencil lines vertical. But as you can see, our main concern is getting the tops and bottoms of the window. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our shutters are looking good with our windows. And there you have it. We have our 2 windows with shutters. Then, again, we can do the same thing. We could start with a new piece of paper. And we'll just look in here and say, all right, here's the window sash here, bottom here, top here. I just want to get that this sash is higher. So there's a bottom and a top sash to these windows. I'm just using this like that to get the top and bottom sash in. This one is halfway, so I just look at it and kind of pretty much look at it. Yeah, it's about halfway. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's good. And this sash, though, is a little bit higher. So that's why I wanted to use these marks on this paper, just so I can get that difference with the sashes here. And that's going to be white paper. And then here we have 3 across and 3, 2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you have 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's a little bit. 4. We have actually extra. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have 1, 3, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's the top windows, and then these are halfway, 3, half, and then 3. And then this one here, we go down the same thing, straight down with these lines. And these are 4, or 1, 2, 3, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2. So this is a little bit different than these windows up here. These are more symmetrical. These are a little bit non-symmetrical with the grill patterns of the window panes and grills. All right, so we have our windows complete. Why not? Let's just keep going here. We're on a good roll here. Let's we'll get our heights for our roof and our bottom windows here. So I'm going to come over here and say, all right, this is going to be top of roof, fascia board here. So that's the fascia board here, right there, fascia board. This is the roof. You could write things down if it makes it easier, like that. Roof here, fascia board, white trim here. Then we come down over here and we say our bottom of windows here. bottom of the window there. That gives us our heights for what we need. Okay. Then we can spin it around here and we can get our distances. So we're going to say this is the shutter, window, left side shutter, and then we have the door. Doors here, like that, and then we have another door over here too. Arched doorway there. Okay, and we just take that over here. Again, I'm taking this edge here, lining it up right on the edge of the building like we did over here, and I'll just go this way and do this. I'll just make little dots for now just to get our shutters and our window and our door location and our second door location there. Just little dots. Then we're going to work out the heights. And we already did that over here. So from this point down we have the roof here. That was the roof, and then the fascia board and the bottom of the window, like that. Okay, simple enough. Take our ruler, we go right across with those lines. You could measure, or if you could just use your ruler, you're not going to want to do that, right? We're not going to want to do this. We'll just keep the ruler somewhat straight. It could, it doesn't have to be perfect, just somewhat straight. You look at the ruler and say, does that look about level? Okay. If you feel like you're having a hard time getting the ruler straight, you don't have to worry. You just take the ruler and measure your first line and say, okay, the first line at the top here is 6 centimeters above the bottom of the painting, 6 centimeters above the top of the painting there. You go across here, and that's going to be our roof, like that. And then our roof here again, the right at the eaves of the roof where it meets the fascia board right there. Fascia board is right here, that really beautiful white fascia board that goes across right where the soffits are over the tops of the doors and the windows, like that. Perfect. You could take a little bit of your pencil mark and make a couple little lines like shingles for the roof, like that. Just so you know, that's your roof area here, and this is your fascia board. You're going to want to keep that white paper. And then, of course, we have these lines here. So we can now start putting in our shutters. And they're right up to the bottom of the fascia, and they go down to the bottom of the window like this. Okay, and that's the window and the other. Okay, like that and like this. So now you have the window and the shutters there. You have the space between the shutter here and the door, and this door is right up to the underside of the fascia board, and there we have it. Okay, so you have your door here, and then we have our arched doorway here, which is pretty much straight like this, and then at the top there's an arch to it, so we just make an arch top to the door like that. So that's an arched door with a handle like this, and there's a handle at this door too. And then for our window over here, we're going to divide it in half. It's a symmetrical sash, so the sashes are symmetrical, one on top of the other. And then we have 4 across and 3. So we're going to go 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Put a sash there, the bottom of the sash, the bottom sash. And then we're going 4 across, so we divide it in half, and divide it in half again. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. And there you have the exact window grills that we saw in the original photograph that we're copying from. And so we have all of our windows set up, our shutters, our trim, and the next thing we're going to do is just go across here to get our transom on our window. And that is, we'll make our transom on top of the door. And that's got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lights. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. All right. Let's take another quick break. We've been working, I guess, maybe 10, 15 minutes or more. Now's a good time. We did a lot of like painstaking, detailed work on this, but I'm hoping that you are going to try out this using some paper and transferring over your lines and things. That might be easier than measuring. But again, if you do have this, your original, you can measure everything as you go. That's fine too. I'm just trying to speed it up a little bit for myself to make it a little bit easier, and I'm used to doing this. So I use my transfer marks, and I just, keep track. When I'm done with one, I scribble it out so I know I'm done with that one. Or you can just cut numerous pieces of paper so that when you're done with one section, like up here, you throw this away, and then you come over and you grab your next clean piece of paper and you start over here. But again, you're just working off of your determined locations that you've already you already know you have the edge of your building here, so that's good. And then again, if you set your edge of your paper here on the corner of this building, then you're just really basically making those hash marks right where you need them for your shutters of your window, or when you're down here doing your window down here in your door, and you're just kind of transferring back and forth so that you save a little bit of time measuring with the painstaking, rulers and measurements like that. You can kind of speed up the process just a little bit because you already have measured over here, and this is actually your perfect, copy that you're working from. So, and you could also trace this if there's a way you can trace it. I do have plastic. I sometimes use acetate. You could always type in Chris Petrie acetate, ACETATE, acetate. I do show some techniques you can use with using acetate plastic to transfer some marks and stuff like that over to a second painting if you're trying to copy something like a painting or a photograph or something like that. So there's different techniques you can use. I've used numerous techniques over my years, and I always try to look for new ideas too as well. But in any case, we're having a fun time doing this. It's a little bit of work, but we want to get this looking good so that when we go in and paint, we're just feeling good. We're just going in and painting and having a great time throwing those colors on there, and that's going to be the fun of it. This is a little more patience we have to have, right? A little more, taking our time a little bit, slowing down, and then bam, once this is done, our pencil drawing is done, then we're going to go right in and have some beautiful washes going on here. So we're almost at that point. I think we only have a few more things. We're going to do we'll come back next after this break. We'll take another quick break, 5 minutes. We'll do the trees next on both sides, just like here. The 2 trees will also just transfer over this adjacent building over here that's next to this one. We'll just transfer over a few of those markings, so we just have some markings to work with when we do some of the washes on the paper. But I think after that we really are set. I think we have everything we could really need here. So we have over here, we have a wall over here. Again, we're going to have that tree over here, and that tree is a little bit over here like this on the sidewalk with a little bit of the Belgian block curbing around the tree. But I think that's going to be fine. We're going to come up with our tree just like this, like that. All right, so I'm starting out, but let me just take a quick break. Again, please take breaks if you can, or if you don't need them, don't worry about it, keep working. All right, so we'll be right back though, and we'll start working on the 2 flanking trees on both sides of this beautiful row house, Colonial style row house, and we're going to have that beautiful red brick going in just a few minutes. All right, we are back, and let's get these trees in here on the left and right side. Let's start over here on the left, and I'm just looking, this one's kind of on the side of the building, so it's not really out in front, although maybe it does kind of peek out in front in a few sections, so it kind of branches out, and then we do put a couple of our branches in front here, but we're going to paint in those branches later. We're not going to get too involved with that. We're going to do a quick little branch out there. so that it branches out over there. Maybe another one here, like that, and then maybe it comes up like this. Okay, that's good enough for now. We'll fill in more details and more branches when we paint. And this one over here, the right side, let's get this one in. A little bit of a thicker trunk of the tree, and again, it's more closer to us, so it's going to look a little bit, larger, I guess, in a sense, and it's a little bit of a larger tree as well. And we're just going to bring this one on in here, and it's going to branch out like this with a large limb going this way. And we'll just bring it back this way and just make it a little thicker as we come back toward the main trunk of the tree. And then here we branch off on a bit over to the left, like this, and there's another branch off going this way here. So it does kind of like a fork in the road there. And it comes down like this, and we have it just like that, setting in the sidewalk area with a Belgian block curbing around it, like that. So that's looking good. And then again, we're going to do the finer branches after we paint the building facade and the cornice and everything. So that'll be the last thing we do. One of the last things we'll do is some of the more finer branches and so forth on this, the two trees that are on both sides of the building. And that should be fine. We have the bushes over here. We have the retaining wall here. And then we said we were going to just draw in the adjacent building. So the adjacent building, it's a little lower. The height of the building is a little lower. It's about halfway on this window here. So I'll just take that mark and come across here with that. And there's another dark bit of detail on the building there. Then at about the bottom of this window here, there's another dark bit of facade material. And then there it kind of goes across level with the... I won't make a big deal of it though. I'm not going to get too detailed with the building over here on the right side. Just to say that we'll carry over some lines from over here. Or at least this one here. This one I think is the fascia trim. I'll carry that through. And that should be good. And then there's the, we also wanted to create the leader pipes for the gutters and leaders here. For the building, so they're going to be on a little bit of an angle too. This would be the leader pipe that catches all the rain from the gutters and brings it on down to the ground level. I'm going to leave it just pretty much straight. I won't get too worried about like some angles and things like that. I think it'll just be okay if we leave it straight on down like that. And then it also goes into a... We're not going to worry about that. We'll just leave it like so. Like that. We'll leave that like that. And then there's another small... There's a bit of a small... could be like a telecommunications box or something over here on the right side. Just a little bit of information there. More information that we're looking at here and trying to transfer it over here. But other than that, I think everything is looking good. And again, at this point, we're ready to paint. We'll do a lot of fun watercolor painting right now with all of our colors of our palette. I'm going to use my standard palette that I use on a continual basis, which is the Schmincke palette. You'll see that in a few seconds. And what I will do is, again, too, if you have seen this first video, I'm really hoping you'll find this one. You're going to find it the same kind of... You just type in Chris Petrie row house and you'll find this one. Ink and Wash Row House. What we're going to do is we're going to use the same brushes we used for our Ink and Wash. Yes, we're going to do that. So you'll notice that I'm going to use the same brushes. I won't use the ink pen, the bamboo ink pen, because obviously we're not using ink now. So I think we'll be okay with that. The only thing we'll add in is maybe we will add in a, we're probably going to use a needlepoint brush for some of the branches and things like that. So we'll have that. Other than that, I think we're all set. We'll have our brushes here, and again, I'll break out the palette and I'll set it all up. So next, when we come back, you'll see everything all set up for the painting. All right, so everything's going to change. I don't want to waste time, doing everything on camera with the camera rolling, changing everything out and putting the palette in there and everything like that. But okay, we're going to come back in a second and we'll get painting. All right, so we're going to get we're going to start here on the painting. I just wanted to go over a few of the brushes that I have. If you did see the first painting that we did, the black and white Ink and Wash painting, you'll be kind of more familiar with what the brushes that we use. But basically, I use just a couple of flat brushes, maybe 3 flat brushes. I use my normally I use this for oil painting. It's a Princeton Aspen series brush, Princeton, and the series is Aspen. You can't really miss it. It's got the blue stripe on it, the powder blue stripe, cerulean blue stripe. It's a number 2 flat brush, so I have that. Also, too, I have the Princeton Art and Brush Company number 6 shader. It's called the shader brush. I think most of these brushes are, well, these brushes are down below in the comments section. This one might be, I'm not sure if I have that one down below, but you can get these all on Amazon. Very inexpensive sets for the Princeton brushes. Princeton brushes are very reasonably priced. And also, too, we have a Princeton Aqua Elite round brush I have, which is a number 3, which is really nice. And you can tell that's a charcoal color gray. I really like the color of these. These are really nice. And then I have the, this is just another very, very small number 2 flat brush. I don't know what the brand is. It's been in my studio probably 10 years or more. And this one here is our Alvaro Castanet needlepoint brush, which I use all the time for all my watercolor paintings. And they are great for detail work. So these are the brushes I'm using. Of course, we've got the Schmincke palette with my colors, my normal watercolor setup here with all my colors. If you ever need, you can type in Chris Petrie palettes. You could just type in the word Chris Petrie and palette in YouTube, and I have like about a dozen or more videos on all my palettes that I use. This one, of course, is on there as well on my videos on palettes, where I share with you all the colors I use and so forth, and my color selections, types of brands of paint. I also have this in my book. So if you see down below in the comment section, you'll see a 2-minute video where I show all the pages of my book, so you can see exactly how many pages it is, what's in the book. I have over 60 of my best watercolor paintings in my book. So if you're purchasing my book, you're going to get a great bargain. It's a great price. It's on Amazon. Excellent price. And again, I have over 60 of my best paintings in there, and all of the information you'll need to have a good solid start with watercolor, as far as all of the exercises, key information you'll need when you start out, fundamental knowledge you'll need to have. I cover that in the beginning of the book, and you'll see that if you go through the 2-minute video. It's only a 2-minute video. You'll see all the pages of my book, and you'll see that in the beginning of the book is all the technical stuff with all the basics that you need for watercolor. And then as you go through the rest of the book, you'll see all the paintings, and I have descriptions of all of the colors that I'm using for each of my paintings, what techniques I'm using. I use basically just 2 techniques, alla prima and the glazing technique. And right here we're going to use probably the alla prima technique and just paint this all at one time. And but in any case, a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you right now, you can have it also in book form, so that you have it as like a manual. You can keep it in your studio, in your place, wherever you like to paint. You'll have a little bit of a setup with some books and informationals and stuff like that. My book's just a great way to have some key information on watercolor, as well as my best paintings that I have recently created. All right, so we're getting started out. We have the brushes. We just saw that. Paints here. If you want me to run through the paints, I will do it. We have I start out usually, I keep my cool colors on the right of my palette, and then on the left side I keep my warmer colors. So basically over here we have, let me see if I can get a better. So over here on the left side we have alizarin crimson, rose madder, cadmium red, and cadmium orange. That's the first row going vertically. Then we have, the next row is cadmium yellow lemon, which is that cooler lemony kind of looking yellow. Then we have raw sienna and yellow ochre. So that's the next row. Then over here next, top is raw umber. And then after that, underneath will be the green. We have a chromium of oxide. And then we have olive green. And then we have here Payne's gray and ivory black. And then here we have burnt sienna, sap green, viridian, which is like a turquoisey green. And then next to that is Prussian blue. And then we have cerulean blue, two wells with 2 pans with cerulean blue, because I use a lot of cerulean blue. I use a lot of cobalt blue, so we have 2 pans of cobalt blue here. Then we have ultramarine violet by Winsor & Newton. And we have French ultramarine blue, which is also Winsor & Newton, and Winsor & Newton burnt umber. Most of these are Winsor & Newton colors. I tend to like Winsor & Newton and Newton paints most of the time. I say like 75% of the time I'm purchasing Winsor & Newton paints. I also use Holbein paints. Some of my Holbein paints in here would be the cadmium yellow and cadmium yellow lemon. And I also would have a few, I think the sap green, or I think the cobalt blue and the French ultramarine blue. I might be also the Holbein. So, but I do use, again, mostly either Winsor & Newton or Holbein. I use most of the time for my paints, the brands, tube paints. And that's it. And then we have everything. And then, so we'll get started here. I thought the first thing we'll do is we'll go in and get the dark paints going, the darker paints. I'll empty out my water bucket. I forgot to do that, I'm sorry, before we started, but I want to do that quickly, get my water bucket changed out with some new fresh water. So I empty it out, rinse it out once quick, and then put some more fresh water in there. Okay, so now I have fresh, clean water in my water bucket. I keep it over on my right-hand side. I like to keep a tissue in hand so that I can rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the water, and then come over and get into the water supply, the paint supply. Okay, so we'll do the tree first. We'll do a couple of the trees first. Burnt umber, we'll get some darks going. A French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. And what I'm trying to do is just get some burnt sienna, some nice selections of colors, some raw umber, just some of my earth tones, some blues, some cerulean. That's pretty much fine for the trees. And we'll just come right over here. And I'll just start putting in my tree over here. And it's pretty dark. I can see from the picture that that's pretty dark over there. So I'm just going to kind of stick with the same colors and tonal values, the darks and lights of this photograph. We're going to just keep thinking to ourselves that's what we want to have working in our painting, is those same darks and lights. We don't want to go off the game plan as far as our... You'll see some areas maybe there's a little bit of light striking the tree. You can lift up a little bit with a paper towel or tissue to lighten up an area of your tree where you think maybe there's some light striking it and splashing upon it, like that. And then again, like I said, we're going to do some improv with our tree branches and things, but we'll just kind of get the basics of it going. Sap green and some yellow ochre maybe. for the bush over here, like that. And we'll come right over here. And we'll start working on this trunk of this tree. I'm just trying to keep myself true to what we're seeing there. And I always recall that when you're painting in watercolor, it's going to be, your paint is going to dry lighter. So if you're seeing this tonal value, that light and dark of things, you always know you have to go a little bit darker than you think you might need, because the paint's going to dry lighter. So if you always just have that in the back of your mind when you're painting watercolor, you always know your paints are going to, once they dry, they'll be lighter than what you are putting it down. So when it's going down and going, like, you know, we're putting it on now, yeah, it's dark, but it's going to lighten up actually. You know, the colors and the tonal values are going to lighten up. So just recall that. That's a good bit of solid information you can always have with you, is things are going to dry a little bit lighter. So don't be afraid to go a little bit darker than you think that you need to go for your darks and lights. And we're going to come over here and we'll get these branches going over here. Like that. Okay, so now we've established some good darks, and I do admit that I didn't create the tree branches the same as we're looking at here. I don't think that that's a problem. You can, trees and branches and things are very free, so you don't have to worry sometimes if you're not painting it exactly with what you're seeing. I would try to keep it as accurate as you can, but sometimes I just didn't do it here. But that looks pretty good. And maybe some yellow ochre over here. So I like to go warm and cool. So blues and golds and grays. Get some texture on there maybe with some dry brush. Dry brush is real simple. I'm using Fabriano rough paper, white paper. It's called Artistico, Fabriano Artistico paper. And it's rough paper, so it's a rough texture, not extremely rough. Not quite as rough as Arches, let's say, if you're familiar with Arches paper. But it has got a rough texture to it, so you can get some nice textured looking washes on there when you are using your brush. And just kind of, you know, you get a little bit of water on your brush, dry off a little bit of water, pick up a little bit of paint, dry off a little bit of paint, and then you just gently drag your brush across that paper, and you get those beautiful broken bits of edge paint and edges and things and textures with using a dry brush technique. Actually, it's called the dry brush technique in watercolor, which is basically using a drier brush and just lightly going across your paper. And if you're going across it very lightly, it'll just appear to be slightly textured. Okay, so we are in good shape here. Okay, a few more branches there. All right, so now I think what we'll do is we will work next with some of our red brick color. I think that's what we're going to do next. We're going to mix up our red brick color. It's going to be fun. We're going to mix up lots of reds. So we have alizarin crimson, I think I might use the little bit larger brush. This is a number ½ inch. This is a Blick brush. It's called Blick Studio Synthetic. Stroke is the also on this ½ inch Blick shader. Studio Synthetic, I should say. Flat brush. So we're going to have some of the alizarin crimson. We'll use a little bit of this. which is some of the brown and blue. We'll mix up a little bit of the cerulean blue down here. So we're going to have lots of kind of gray looking mixtures. Rose madder. Let's put some rose madder in there. Some cadmium red over here. Like that. A little bit of orange maybe. And also some burnt sienna. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting a lot of beautiful mixtures of like really warm colors. The beautiful rust, this is a burnt sienna. And then we have the little bit of rose madder, a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of cadmium red right here, cadmium orange, a little bit of yellow ochre, and then we mixed up a little bit of that blue, maybe a touch of purple here too. We'll get a little bit of purple going. And I think that's good. I think we have most of the colors that we've mixed so far for the painting. But we're going to get that mostly reddish color. And we'll just start right up here at the top. And just, I'm going to paint around the windows. And you can go any which way. You can leave some broken looking paper like we're doing. See that? The texture. Dry brush effects are really great. We're going to use those. So I'll just go like this. I'll pick up different colors from different areas. Like that. And what this flat brush does is you can really cut around the windows really nice. So that you don't go over the window trim. How I'm like this. I'll paint over that gutter. I won't paint over the tree though. The tree trunk I'm gonna paint up to that and then just sort of like, you know, I don't want to paint over that. Okay, a little more here. And there we are. Okay. And let's just keep moving right along here. Oh, looks good. We're just painting around the shutters. We don't want to paint those either. Those are white. You can always put a little tiny W in areas you don't want to paint over. So you could always put a little W and then erase it later because this is going to stay white. So you can just put a little W here, a W here, a W here, a W here, a W here. And those are areas we want to keep white paper. So if we do that, we're kind of ahead of the game. And then you can do a little bit of color over the roof here. I'm going to go right across here like this. So I'm going to use these same colors and go right across. Again, I'll try to paint around the trees so I don't cover that light there. And again, I'll use the same color, red brick color that I used on this side over here. I'm going to bring it right over to the other building and just kind of I'm thinking to myself, it's all both of the buildings are similar, so they're going to have the same color bricks maybe. It's not always that way in real life, but okay, and we're going to come right down here doing the same thing. And you can see how this is careful around these, around the shutters of the windows. Got to be careful with those so we don't paint over them. We don't want to do that. And again, leave those dry brushy strokes on there. That's kind of that rustic colonial look you want to have. We definitely don't want to just paint everything one color, let's say, or cover the whole thing. We want to leave that broken paper, that dry brush look. And if always remember, if you want to get the dry brush look, it's always good. You just pick up some paint, dry it off on a paper towel or a tissue, then go in and do a little bit of painting. And you'll just notice that your brush will have less paint on it, and you'll get that look you want. So I'm going to go down here like this. And it's totally fine to move your brush around in different directions. Don't feel like you have to just kind of do the same brush stroke the same way. You can just move your brush around in different fashion like that. And I think right now we're looking good. I think we have the look we're after. And there's a little bit of red brick over here too. Like that. All right, I told you this was going to be a lot of fun. This is great. Look at the beautiful colors we have. We're going to add more texture to it with some brick. We're going to show you how to paint in some brick here on the facade of the building. But it's really coming along nicely. Let's take a break. We did a lot of painting just now. We took our time. Again, we just showed you that technique of putting a little W in the areas you want to keep white paper. And if you do that, it'll remind you to not paint in those areas. And then later on, we can just take an eraser and erase that off, because we're going to leave these white. The shutters, the door, these shutters over here. Okay. And then we'll go in and do some more details too. As far as the windows, we're going to do more details on the windows. But we're there. We're almost getting there. We're at like probably 60% now complete with this. This is the big part of the painting, getting on the facade color like we just did with the beautiful reds, all mixtures of reds. And trust me, it's going to look even better as we get the details completed in the painting. So it gets better and better as it goes. I will do one more thing. I will add some cerulean blue like this with my brush in a few places, just so that we have the warm and cool effect everywhere. So I'll just pick up a little bit of that cerulean blue and put that onto the red brick. And it's not everywhere. You can also dab a little bit, but you can add some blue like that here and there. Okay, perfect. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue painting. You're going to have a really fun time finishing up this painting with me, and there's no worries. Again, when you're in the middle of the painting, it always looks a little bit odd. It doesn't look always that great. Always remember, finish out your paintings no matter how it looks. Work it all the way to the end when it's completely finished. And then you can step back and look at it the next day or the next day or two and say, okay, yeah, I see I had an issue there, I had a problem there, but oh, that came out great over there, and that looks really fantastic over here. So you can pick out what came out good in your painting, what you may have had some problems in other areas. That's what you do maybe the next day after you're done painting the painting. Or maybe the same day too, it depends, but it's always better to let it dry and walk away from it for a while, and then you come back the next day and look, and then you can kind of critique your own work. That's the best way to look at it. You're looking at critiquing your own work and saying what's working, what looks good, what came out good, and maybe what are some problem areas. And then if you find a few problem areas, you might jot them down on some paper or just make a mental note and say, oh yeah, on this painting, I had a little bit of a problem with, I painted over the white shutters because I forgot to put the W in the white shutters, and I painted over the white shutters. But if you do that, there's no problem because we have a fix for that. If you do paint over anything that's white, that's supposed to be white in this painting like this, we'll show you how you can fix that really quickly. As long as it's not drastic, you can fix it really quickly at the end of the painting when you're done. So we'll cover that too, okay? All right, so there's no worries. Again, we're practicing our techniques, our methods in watercolor, and we're just getting better and better as we go, and we're just taking mental notes the whole time as to what's working, what's looking good, and some things are going to go wrong, and that's always the case. Even with the best of artists, they have paintings that go wrong. So even if you're talking the greatest artists out there in the world, they have paintings that go wrong too, especially watercolor. Watercolor is not an easy medium to paint in. It's probably the most difficult out of any medium you're going to paint in. Watercolor is the most difficult. Most all pro artists will tell you that. And that's why not a lot of, there's a lot of, watercolor artists, obviously professionals, but they will, most pro artists will tell you watercolor is not easy. It's difficult. Takes time to learn. Don't be worried about it. You just, again, let's work together, figure out what's working, what's not working, and make our notes in our mind. And then the next time we go in, we're going to improve. And that's all we're doing, is just constantly improving. Every time we make a new painting, we're getting used to the process, getting better, seeing what's working, steering clear of the problems that we're having. It might take you 6 months or a year to work out a problem that you tend to have that keeps coming up again over and over again. And that's how it was for me. So I always noticed I had problems, and it took me quite a while to get used to, like, how am I going to get around that issue, and eventually it gets locked in the mind, like, I can't do that because I know what's going to happen. And then I finally get it, and then that's one more issue I'm not doing anymore, and then I'll be painting, and then I'll work on another one. So that's all it is. It's just chipping away at it. All right, so let's get back to painting instead of talking. I apologize. I'm talking my chewing gums here a lot. We'll come back in a minute. We'll keep painting. All right, so we're picking back up again. We're going to continue on now. So we did get the brick color that we wanted, the brick wash on the entire building as well as the adjacent building alongside this. And now I'm thinking, let's go back to some darks again. I think we'll put in the window glass, the window panes with the grills. We'll get that in next, I think, and the door too is a dark black, as you can see. So let's work on that a little bit. I'm going to take the ruler and do a little bit of trim around the door. And I noticed I'm going to do this. I'm going to put some door trim around the door, both sides here, like that. And that should be good. I just wanted to get that completed before I start painting, and then we'll start mixing up a little bit of paint. I'll get my water bucket. I might just change out my water, and again, I change out my water frequently in my water bucket here, so I'll scrub around too inside the water bucket just to get up the sediment off the bottom, and then splash it back into the bucket. So I have a large bucket that I have on the side of my table that I empty my water container in, so that helps a lot with it's like one of those, like I don't know, maybe like a 2-gallon bucket. Let me see how many gallons this is. It's a 10-quart bucket and plastic, and I leave it on the side of my art table, and this way every time I take the water container and change the water, I just dump that into the bigger bucket, and then maybe like once every couple of days, or once a week, I'll empty out the larger bucket with the water, and this way it's not like a big deal. I just it goes a lot more efficiently that way. And let's see here. So we'll have our photograph close by, and we'll just start going back in again and creating some of those washes. A dark is really what we need for the glass in the windows, for most of the windows and the door, but there are some areas that we have some sky colors as well in the I'll put some green there. I'll just get a mixture of colors like that, some gold, yellow ochre maybe, but mostly I'm looking for the I'll always have usually a tissue in hand, dry off the brush a little bit. I don't want too much water in here because we're going with really dark washes now, which means pretty much like straight paint almost, and a little more brown in there. So we want to get it to be almost like a black, which is French ultramarine blue and burnt umber. It can get you almost to the black looking color, and that's fine. And you can see they're all very much dark. the windows up above here, higher up on the building, they are starting to reflect some of the sky and some of the foliage a little bit in the trees and things. So we can notice that. But down here near ground level, we have some just the black squares here, and I would do it this way maybe. It seems the brush fits better this way, so I'm just going to do this. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then we have 3 up here. So sometimes if you go a little quicker, it looks a little better than trying to like be too exacting, but that's pretty good. So with these flat brushes, you see how you can go really a long way with them. The only thing I would do different here is I would have started up top here, so this way I can rest my hand on the paper as I'm working downwards like this. I started down here, so now I have to be really careful that I don't rest my hand in the wet paint. So what I'll do is I'll just go over to here next, and this is one of those things in watercolor that really are important if you can just remember to strategically put your washes on, thinking in the back of your mind, is it going to be in my way for when I continue painting? So if I'm putting down a wash on my watercolor paper, is it going to sort of like be in the way of my next move on my paper where I'm going next? If that is the case, you can always take a break and just say, oh, I made a mistake. I should have started up here with my window panes. No problem. I can let this dry. Once I do this, let that dry, and then continue on up here. But we did have a door over here that we can work on like that. So it's not a big problem. Like that. And I usually, along the upper section, it gets a little more shade right alongside the underside of the window up here, and then under the sash here, the halfway point. If you can imagine that the top sash is further out this way, closer to us. The bottom sash of this window is further in that way. So that's why you'll tend to see sometimes that little bit of a shadow underneath the sash of the window there. And then of course the window usually insets into the building a little bit, like the window's not flush, if you can imagine, or perfectly, like it's not a perfect straight plane across your building face. Your building face has actually got, varying amounts of protrusion and things that are kind of set back further into the building. So the windows are usually set back a little bit, and that's why you'll see that shadow along here too, often. And then up here too as well. There might be a little bit of a shadow there. And we'll see. We have more shadows. And again, right here I noticed I painted over the door trim. So toward the end of the painting, when we go in and do our final touch-ups, we'll do a little bit of white paint to just fix up that trim I painted over a little bit. That's why I say never worry about, if you have areas that are white, like anything white, you can always go in at the end of the painting and touch it up and put a little bit of white paint on your painting. That always works. So we'll continue here. I think the next thing we're going to do is, well, let's do this. Let's get some blue, cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of green, and then a little bit of brown, maybe too, just to, maybe a little bit of purple. I'll rinse off my brush, and then I'll dry off my brush. Then I'll pick up a little bit of this, and we'll make the roof colors here. So now this is where I let the brush, you can make some areas with detail like this, like some shingles. And then some areas you can just paint straight across, you don't have to do every bit of detail. I'll do some details like this for roof shingles. I think that looks kind of nice. Like that. A little bit of blue in there. So So if you find that somehow your color got a little bit grayed down too much and you need to add a little bit of color to it, be aware of it and just take some green or some blue. So I'll add some green and some blue into that bit of rooftop there. Okay. And while we're doing the darks, again, we said we would try to get some areas over here where there's some darks. And here as well, there's another dark. So these are some areas on the adjacent building that there's some shadows underneath some of the portions of the building. And I'll bring that down here like so. Okay, good. Now, let's continue to work on a little more dark. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. That gets us that really almost like black quality of the pigment. And I dry off a little bit of the paint on a paper towel or tissue just so I don't have too much on there. Sometimes that can be really a hassle if we have too much paint on the brush. And we go in and we put the brush stroke down and all of a sudden it's like a big puddle of water flows out onto the... That's one of the keys to watercolor, is kind of the control of how much paint and water you have in your brush. That can really go a long way. Figuring that out is something we all learn in watercolor as we go. And I'm starting to see that my window panes are... So sometimes too, if you're painting and you start to notice, oh wow, I should have left more white paper up there. That's not a big deal. I'll come over here and do this. And I'm not painting this perfectly again. I'm painting over some of my lines because the squares are so small that this brush is not fitting into them. So then I just gave up on trying to paint within the pencil lines. Sometimes you have to realize you'll have some pencil lines on your drawing. You just have to forget about them and just paint over them and don't worry about it, because no one's ever going to be critiquing that too much and saying, oh, someone painted over their pencil line there. It just kind of all gets worked out. And then here I'm going to use a little bit of that cerulean blue for some sky color, and maybe even a little bit of the green, some viridian green. So that's where I thought, I should have had some of that over here too. So I put a little bit of that in here. There's going to be some shadowing under here, under the tops of these windows. So I'm going to do that up here like this. Shadows under there. And then again, we'll do the same thing over here. So over here, we have another chance to redeem ourselves by making a little more kind of that beautiful blue and green sky and leaves and things in the windows. So I'll rinse off my brush, pick up some of that green, maybe a little bit of that yellowish. So you can put a little bit of that green and blue for the sky color. And that looks really good. Let's do it that way. Like that. And that'll definitely resonate with people if you kind of have these type of details in your paintings where you're kind of really noticing subtleties like this in your photograph, where you are putting in some sky color into your window panes. That makes a huge difference. It really does, because that's what you'll see if you're out in the street. You're in this scene, you're walking down a beautiful sunny day, springtime, you're walking down this scene, you're looking at the buildings, and you've probably seen this type of scene over and over again in your life so many times that it resonates when you add some of these details in like this with, again, the sky color reflecting into the glass. The easy thing to do is just to say, oh, it's all black, all the window panes are black in this painting, and just go right through it with all, you know. So that's why I'm saying, you know, if we add these really subtleties to our paintings, it's going to go a long way. So that's why I might mention it, because it is, you know, important if we can get those little details here and there. And then I'll go, because this is, you know, I can see a lot of these are dark. And what probably that is, there's probably very, very dark trees across the street from this building, or even another building or so, which is creating a lot of darkness and shade. So that darkness and shade is just being reflected back in these windows. And then the higher up the building is, these windows up here, they're sort of up higher, so they're picking up the sky colors in the trees and the leaf forms and things like that. So that's just an interesting observation as we go. And again, my window panes are not perfect here. And then we noticed here's the sash up here. So that's where I had that little bit more of shadowing. And then the same thing over here. I was needing to do that too. Over here is the sash. And the same thing here. And what's nice about that detail of painting underneath that top sash like that with a shadow, it makes the, you know, it makes this visible that it's, you know, it's a window with two sashes, an upper and a lower. And the same thing here too. And the same thing here. So that really is kind of a key to make the windows look really, really beautiful. I don't, these, yeah, I'm thinking these windows, I'm seeing them the same way as I painted them. And all right, so we have accomplished a lot. We've got the windows completed, the doors painted in. Let's take a quick break. We'll come right back in a second, and we'll start getting in our shadows. We can see some really good, beautiful dark shadows underneath this cornice at the top of the building. We'll get in that. Same thing here. We see that really nice shadow that goes across the underside of this soffit here. And this small shed roof that's like an overhang over the front door area and windows. So let's come back and do that. And we should be really close to finishing up. After that, it's going to be just a few more subtle details of some tree branches and limbs and things and some foliage and a little bit of sky color. And I think after that, we are all set. All right, we are back again, and we're going to actually just do one quick thing. Well, we've come a long way, and remember, we did an earlier video, actually it was yesterday, and we talked about how we did the black and white version of this first, which is right there. So we did the black and white first, and this is great practice. If you did this watercolor now that we're working on here, and you're working on this, I want to really thank you and give you a lot of praise for that and say great work, because it's challenging. This is a lot of drawing, measuring, things like this, but we did some shortcuts on this video. If you go back and you watch this one, if you haven't seen this video where we did the black and white and this is the finished painting, it came out beautiful. I mean, if you like black and white photography, this is something I really enjoy. Black and white photography a lot. I always did, even when I was very, very young, before I started painting. I always thought it was very beautiful, just in the way it looks, its finished look. But you can see we did that first, and we went through the whole process from start to finish, the drawing, and then the ink and wash, and then some of the lighter washes, the middle tones and light tones. But this is what we did first, and now this video, again, we're talking about, wow, you do that first one, this second one here is going to go a lot easier, and you'll have a lot more fun because you're doing more colors, right? Colors are really nice too. I mean, I like black and white photography and black and white paintings. I like doing the sepia tone paintings, but this is really, beautiful too. Getting in these colors just is really exciting. So we'll continue in this, and I wanted to just mention too with the brickwork, So if we're going to make some brickwork for this building now, just so we have a subtle, some nuances on this facade we created, and we were always planning to do this. So I'm just adding some brick colors like the cadmium red, cadmium yellow, orange, some red. We want some red there too, some alizarin crimson, a little bit of cerulean blue too here, a little bit of purple. Let's get some purple. So we can really use all these colors in our brickwork, but mostly it's going to be in this area here. That's going to be mostly our brick colors, the red, right? But there's going to be some subtleties of purples and greens and things. But the thing we're going to do is we're just going to kind of overlay some brick washes on this facade. And it's really, the brick pattern's kind of real simple. If you were to draw like a straight line as this being the corner of the building, like this. If that, is the corner of the building here, you just start off with a full brick like that, and then a half brick, and then a full brick, and then a half brick, and then a full brick, and you're just going to do it like here and there. You're not going to do this whole facade. I mean, if you wanted to, you could do the whole thing, but no big deal. But then you can just see how this pattern just keeps reoccurring, full bricks all the way across like this. And you leave that little space for the mortar joints in between each of the bricks, and then you just go back with this one here, and then this one lands halfway on this one here, and then the next one goes across to the halfway point on this one here, and the next one goes across like that to the halfway point there. And that's all you have to remember, is just you're going to the next halfway point like that, and that gives you your brick pattern. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can do a little bit of splashing on them. You could splash on your brick a little bit here with some, like that, and then, do a little bit of give it that rustic feel, that colonial feel. You could take even some darker darks and make every once in a while, put a nice dark brick in there, We'll do that actually. That looks beautiful. A couple of dark bricks in here and there. All right, so we'll do that, but that's how you do the brick pattern. And then if you start in the middle of the building, you don't have to worry about the half bricks. You can just paint, the full bricks. But let's do it. Let's just start getting in some bricks. So maybe we'll start here, and we'll just do one half, full brick, half brick. Now these are, if we were trying to scale this perfectly, I'd have a smaller brush and do the bricks a little smaller, because these bricks are, if we're looking at this right now, this looks more like stonework or something, or like large cinder blocks, because the brush is kind of big for this scale. So I guess what I mean is, something like probably, I don't have, I'm trying to think of the smallest. I have smaller flat brushes like this, smaller than this, but I'm not sure where it is right now. I have a few maybe, but not a big deal. Again, we just want to get that feeling of texture, of the brick textures, so you can go in and, you add a little different half brick there, whole brick, and just go across your whole bricks like this. And so all you have to do is a couple of those here and there, not everywhere, like that, right? Some purple, maybe some darker ones, and we will go in and add some darker bricks. Let's do a couple here, like this. And then if for some reason you don't have to worry if you make a couple of errors with the way the courses are. You don't have to really worry about that too much. No one's going to really pick up on that. As long as you, once in a while, we're just going to try to keep to that half, whole brick, half brick. So you'll see that it sometimes works out just right, that it goes across perfect. Other times maybe not. No big deal. You just try to keep them level though across the picture like this. That would be something very important. You wouldn't want to start going off on angles. So if you have to, you know, you could draw a couple of pencil lines across your facade right now at this point, just so that you kind of subtle pencil lines, but just so that you stay on the level, you know, the level marks. You don't want to, again, you don't want to have your brickwork going on an angle like this. That'll ruin the look of the whole look of the painting. Because when you're out in real life, the brickwork is always going to be level. All these courses of all these brick are always going to be right on the money level, all the way up the whole entire building like this, from the ground up. So if you start going off on an angle like this with your brickwork, that is going to look, it'll be really, really unpleasant looking, and people would probably just kind of like walk away from the painting. If it's in a gallery or something, they wouldn't even look at it. They'd walk right by it, unfortunately. But that's one of those things where people are very, well, you know, the human eye is incredibly, very, very critical. So when you're looking at artwork, even if you're not an artist and you're just a person looking at a painting, people that are just maybe looking at a painting that don't know anything about art, they know, their eye knows, their brain knows, I've never seen that before. That looks really off, you know, something where it's just brickwork going on angles up or down like this, you know. So you got to keep these bricks, even though we're not doing a lot of them, or the whole, you know, we're just doing a few here and there. I'm hoping that we keep them straight, keep them level, keep your bricks level. And then you can make some more up here. We're going to do some shadowing up here too, by the way, underneath the, you know, underneath this cornice up here. But I just wanted to get in some of this, like this here, like that. Okay, and again, we're not doing it everywhere. Like that. So I'm thinking a couple here and there. Okay, so we're going to get more like a black color here. I dry off a little bit of the paint, and we'll just do a few dark bricks like this. That's very colonial. Colonial brick is very much, usually they have some really nice, beautiful dark bricks in here and there, like that. Every once in a while, you just go over the bricks that you've already created when you're doing these dark ones. Then it makes it easier because you don't have to worry. You just kind of know, okay, I already did that one there. I'll do a half a brick there, maybe full brick there, half a brick there, maybe, or a full brick there, one there. So I'm just doing a couple here and there. But that's good. You get the idea. And like that. Go. All right, that's good enough. That's plenty of bricks in there. That gives you the feel of the brickwork. So we've taken this to its fullest, you know, extent of really getting that real incredible looking facade. That's just, you know, just beautiful. Now I might have, you know, let me do a few here, a couple bricks over here. Like this. I did. So you can step back. That's what's good about it. You can step back and look and say, did I miss any areas where I could add a few bricks? Maybe I just left the whole area out. Like over here, I think I left every, you know, a whole area that I didn't have any bricks in. Same thing here too. I would probably need to add a few over here. Like that. And the same thing here. That's all we need. Maybe we need a couple more dark ones here, like that. One there, maybe over here, another one. That. Yeah, that's good. All right. So we got plenty of beautiful brickwork in there. And next thing we're going to do is we can just keep working right along here. I think we have I think here I'll maybe use a larger brush. Now what I can do is I've mixed a lot of different paints on my palette right now, and I feel like now's the perfect time. I'm just going to clean up the palette for the most part. I can leave the blue and French ultramarine blue and burnt umber. I can leave that here because we really didn't go in there and add too many. We didn't add any colors to that. So we've just been using, for this well here, we've just been using the French ultramarine blue and the burnt umber for our darks. But the rest of the kind of paint sections we did kind of mix quite a bit. So let's just get a little bit of a clean up on our palette, and just like that, a little bit of cleanup is fine, and we'll keep going here. Now with this, we're going to do some shadowing up here on the cornice first, and I think for that we're going to use cerulean blue, a little bit of raw sienna, like that, a little bit of green, I think a touch of green, purple. I'll keep it subtle though, because this is going to be sort of a light shadow. This is going to be a light shadow first, then we'll go over with darker shadowing, okay? That's why I'm doing it this way. So I'm just trying to, you can see it's got lots of water and very little bits of color here and there. I don't want to make it overpowering. I want to keep it nice and subtle. And then we'll just paint the entire cornice underneath like this. Like that, and just go right across. Like that. And it looks pretty gray, actually, as we go across it. I can see. So this pretty much turned out to be like a really like a gray color, which I'm fine with that. And then I can maybe even just blot up, a little bit here and make some little bit of light bouncing around under there. And I'll let that dry, because then what we'll do is once this dries, we'll go with those darker tonal values. As you can see, there is some darker shadowing on the trim of the cornice, as well as some of that dental trim going across. So that's, we're going to have that. And then we're going to want to go across with our shadowing now. So let's do that. Let's go underneath the cornice with our shadow under there. Up top here you can see. And then under here we have another. And this brush looks just the right size to go across with that shadow. So let's do it. We'll go in, we'll get some more cerulean blue, raw sienna, some purple, cerulean blue. So this is warm and cool, like that, warm and cool. Blue and purple is cool. Gold, which is raw sienna, is warm. And we can go over this, and maybe even a little bit of French ultramarine blue, and we'll see. We'll just go right across. I think it's going to have to be darker, but we can go across one time to cover the windows, like that. And the same thing here, once across, pick up more color, go across, just use your brush. All you need is, if you can match up your brush size to what you're painting, then it's like real easy. You just go, oh, I need this size brush here for that shadow. You just load up your brush with the shadow color and just go across with one pass of your brush. And I go around my tree there, and I do that. And there we have it. We have a beautiful shadow effect underneath the soffits here. And we left that trim board white, just like the photograph there. I noticed that in this photograph, it might be that I adjusted this photograph. I adjusted this photograph on my on my phone. I adjust the levels of the light and the shadow and some of the contrast and stuff to make it look a little bit better and easier to kind of work from. But as I look at this, I can tell that it's sort of like the shadows underneath this shed roof area here where the fascia board is. You can kind of see it's almost like it's missing the shadow where the door and the window and the shutters are. It's there, but it's so subtle. But it really would be looking like this. If I didn't adjust this picture, this photograph, it would look more like this. You'd see that shadow, kind of like that shadow line going all the way across like this. Same thing up here. But it is darker where the brick is. So you could go in and get a little more French ultramarine blue, raw sienna, purple. So you're mixing the warm and cool all the time. And then you could go over like this and just do this on the brickwork. And this even makes it look even better. I'll go around the tree here carefully. I don't want to paint over that branch of the tree. And that does look better. So I want it to go a little darker where the brick is. So I kind of skipped. Can you see how I skipped over the windows? And I'm just going over where the brick is, basically. And I skip over where the tree is too. I want to leave that tree light. But this is really good to do if you can do this bit of darkening up where the brick is. It just looks a little more realistic, actually. All right, and we can keep working a little more. Let's not, I'm going to take my round brush here. This is the Princeton Aqua Elite round brush number 3. And we'll put a little shadowing underneath the shutters and the bottom of the window here too. And just a quick little bit of shadowing like that. It's going to look good under the window too as well. Under here like so. Okay, and I would say the sunlight is straight up overhead. So this would be like midday, like, noontime or so. So the shadows are really, minimal. They're not going to be, we're not going to, the shadows won't be that large. They're going to kind of be more minimal like we're having them here. And I think that's good. So we have the bottoms of the windows. And we can work a little bit up on top here with our shadowing up here. And I'll just be careful not to lean into my shadowing that I already... Let's do this. Let's take a break and let this kind of set up a little bit and dry, the shadowing, because I want to work on the cornice up here to get those little bit of shadows up here. I don't want to lean into this paint up here and kind of like, make any funny looking smudges or something like that. So I will try to fix that up a little bit. All right, we'll come back in a second, and I think we're getting there. I would say another 10 or 15 minutes of work, and we should have everything completed. And we won't overwork this too much. We'll kind of, just get what we need on here to make it all come together really nicely. So we'll do that next. We'll finish up probably in the next 20 minutes. Once we take a quick break, we'll come back and finish up. All right, this is, we're getting started again. We just took a 5-minute break. This is kind of the fun part of the painting when we're just getting the last bit of details in. And, we kind of just know it's easier going. There's not too much more stress involved, with kind of really having to think about a lot of things at one time, or just kind of know that we have to get some sky color in. We have to get a little bit of shadowing up here. Let's do that next. At the top of the painting where the trim is, we know we wanted to get a little more I clean up the palette a little bit so that we have some new colors that we're going to put out. We don't have to worry about contamination where we have too many colors at one time getting onto the painting. So again, we're always going to stick with our French ultramarine blue and burnt umber for something like a black, just to have that. Then we're going to go with some raw sienna and cerulean blue, like this. Warm and cool, so that's a nice effect right there, just the raw sienna and cerulean blue. Right away you have some nice warm and cool effect. And of course purple for shadowing is always beautiful. I use ultramarine violet by Winsor & Newton. That's my favorite purple that you can get in a tube paint. And so I'll just go in and I guess I could do it this way. That might seem like good. I'll just be very careful. I have my hand resting on the paper. Everything's dry now, so my whole entire painting is dry. Now I can just rest my hand right on the paper, get a good stable setting for my hand right here, and then I can just go right down every other. You can change up the colors a little bit maybe. Make them a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. Maybe a little more gold color, like this. So you really have a lot of options. But once we get that in, we're pretty much, we have our dental molding in now. Then we can go with our, I'm going to see if I can get this brush to, it is sort of a flat brush actually. And we'll just do a couple of bits of shadowing across here. You can always infuse a little bit of gold into a blue shadow or a blue purple shadow, right? So you can always change up your shadow colors a little bit. And I'm just going to do very subtle shadowing under here now. I want to make it look a little more ornate by adding in a little more shadowing. But it's not a really complex process with this. Just a nice fine, very fine brush. And I'm just trying to get those shadows in. I add some more raw sienna. So I'm making my shadows kind of like the warm and cool again, same thing. Gold shadows, blue, purple, mix them up, modulate the colors. You always will have better, I think, a better looking final finished product if you're adding some warm and cool everywhere. Modulating your colors versus just going with one color. Like if we were just to go with one color across here and kind of have that same, you know, game plan for all of these subtle lines we're doing, I think it would look quite boring and stagnant. So that's why I change up the colors constantly. Warm and cool, warm and cool, warm and cool. Like this. Okay, so now we have some really nice detail for the shadowing up here. You can, again, blot up a little bit of paint a couple times here and there for a little bit of effect of maybe some reflected light somewhere. And what else do we have? We would probably get in some sky color next. So I'll use this brush. This is the 1/2" Blick Studio Synthetic. It's called Stroke. Flat brush, synthetic. I'll empty out my water again one more time because we're doing sky color now. I'd rather have the sky color using fresh, clean water because it's going to be light. It's going to be a very light wash. So we'd want to have light. We'd want to have fresh, clean water. We'll put a little bit of French ultramarine blue for the sky color. A little bit of cerulean for sure, because we've used cerulean blue a lot. Let's get some of that in there. Doesn't have to be all mixed up like this. Just get it in there and kind of just loosely touch it up against each other, the colors. Same thing, a little bit of raw sienna maybe. Right in the bottom here, just a touch of some raw sienna. A little bit of purple maybe, just a touch of that. A little bit of the Viridian, that would look good. Some Viridian green in there. All right, let's see how it works. Looks good. And what I'll do is just have some areas that look a little bit darker and a little bit lighter. And then I just go on down here. Okay, and then we could even blot up a little bit here and there. If you want to make your sky a little bit lighter, toward the bottom, maybe a couple of clouds here and there, like that. Looks good. Now, we could also take this sky color and just add it a little bit here and there. Just in a few places, just to harmonize all the colors together. Maybe a little bit on the doors and the shutters. Doesn't have to, and I would erase those W's though before you paint over them. So that's something that I could have done. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm not going to worry about it too much. This is a composition, right? I'll try erasing it later. If not, we can always paint over it with a little bit of titanium white or Chinese white. We'll see what happens. But we'll keep going. And I think also a little bit of that blue on this sidewalk. And I'll just make the sidewalk feel like it's picking up some of the light from the sky above. Like that. It's also going to be picking up some of that red from the brickwork, I think. So I'll make a little bit of that brick color, yellow, some raw sienna and alizarin crimson, like that. Just to have some of that in the sidewalk too, like that. And then before we might have needed to add a little brickwork over here too. And I'm trying to think. Let's see here. We got the sky completed. Sidewalk looks good. Maybe we'll do a little bit of details to this over here. Just some of the Belgian blocks over here. Okay, a little bit of dark there for some, there's a, planting bed here with the tree in it. And so we have that. Just a couple of indications of some of the separations in the sidewalks. So if you have those lines, it kind of makes it feel like you're looking at it and it's perspectively correct. At this point, I think we will we're going to take our needlepoint brush and we'll start making some of our branches. So I'm going to say that's going to be French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. We'll come over here, mix this in a little bit green, a little bit of green, sap green. Okay. Okay, so now we get a good dark across here. Like this. Dry off a little bit of paint on there just so we don't. And we'll just do a couple quick. And this is where I don't really I wouldn't fuss around too much with this. I mean, get some nice branches and twigs in here, but don't go crazy with too much of those because that can actually lead to problems. Too much of any one thing on the watercolor painting can really give you headaches. So I would say just do this, a couple of them here and there. A couple of them going down, a couple of branches once in a while, they go down that way. This one here, we do have branches that come up this way. From this tree here, we have some branches that are jutting out around the building. And that's always nice to see that. Some really good, quick, fun branches like this. Like that. I think that's good enough, not too many. We have some down here too in the bushes. Okay. You could take purple and blue, a lighter wash like this, purple and blue, which would be cerulean blue and ultramarine violet. And you could do some shadows of those branches on the facade. A couple of them very subtle. If you do a couple of those really light washes with the branches, it will really look good. It'll kind of give it a really nice finished look of some shadowing on the and then the same thing on the sidewalk. A couple of shadows on the sidewalk like this with the lighter wash like this. Quicker and looser is better, like that. You could take a little bit of a larger round brush. Let me see if we have something here. Okay, we do have something. We could use a round brush here. Again, with that same purple and cerulean blue. A little bit of raw sienna. Okay, it's a light shadow. shadow color. And then you can kind of look and say, all right, where would that be if it was the tree here? So you can do that, and you can just kind of get this tree like this, like that. And of course there wouldn't be any shadow up there. And something subtle like that, that really can look good. All right, I think we are almost completed. I think we'll just do a few more things. I think I wanted to just add some we'll do it really quickly here. I know we've been going for probably almost 2 hours now. So I'll just finish up fast with some last bits of the detail that I think would look really good. A little bit of that lemony yellow. And some sap green, a little bit of blue, and we'll splash on some leaves. So this would be springtime, very, very light, not much. I wouldn't go with too much of this, right? Just a little bit, maybe some more lemony yellow here. Get some different shades, and it's always nice to have subtlety of changes in color, So if I go with some just straight cadmium lemon yellow over here with a little bit of water and splash on like that, that's going to look good. Then if we add some more sap green like this, maybe some raw sienna, kind of an olivey green, like this, kind of an olivey. That gives you a little bit of some feeling of some really nice foliage there, but very light, very just a bit of color with some springtime foliage. I would do another little bit of maybe some lemon yellow, cadmium yellow lemon. Rinse off my brush, make sure. I just want to get a little bit here and there on some of the shutters, and that just feels like it's very hot, sunny. Some of that very subtle lemon, cadmium yellow lemon on some of the shutters and trim. And then you can blot it up so that it's very subtle, very barely visible, but it will look really nice. Sunlight. Okay. Now we will finish up with some titanium white or Chinese white to fix up a little bit of issues that we had here and there. We did paint over a few things. Here we painted over our trim on our door just to get it back to where it looks better. That's good. Did we do anything else? We did forget to erase our W's. So I'll just go in and paint over them versus trying to erase them, because it seems like erasing is not a good thing to do when you're watercolor painting, just in general. So I just add some of that The reason I say that is because there's been quite a number of times I ruined paintings because I tried going in and erasing something like a pencil line while I was watercolor painting, and for some reason I just went in while the paint was still damp or something, and it wound up like tearing the paper, or I'm sure many of you have had that happen. It's not a fun experience, so don't worry about it. Just remember a little dab of some cadmium or titanium white or Chinese white with a little bit of yellow in the, I usually add a little bit of yellow ochre to the top of the paint, mix it around a little bit so it just has a little bit of that warm tint to it. And again, then you can just go over some things that, any minor problems you might have had with you could put in some sills here, you could take some white paint and make some bricks, sills on the bottom of the windows, like that, if you wanted to. Or touch up a few areas that you think might have, like this here, I think I needed to put a sill there. But that's about it. All right, so we've had fun. You could even take some white here like this. Like that, with a little bit of water. And just do just a few though, a couple of splashes of the white paint kind of makes it feel like some light bouncing around on the trees, off the leaves and things like that. So that's one more thing you can do. Other than that, I think we really have maybe a little bit of yellow on the sidewalk for the warm sunlight. Then I blot it up a little bit so it's kind of barely visible, just kind of subtle like that. And that's about it. I think we've got every detail we could imagine without going too overboard. I would have maybe liked to put a figure in here. We probably could put a figure in here if we wanted to. This here I think was, we had something over here I forgot to paint in, so put that in there. Feel free to put figures in your paintings if you want to. As many as you like. You could have someone sitting in a chair here out in front of the building. You could have someone, actually in this scene there's a young girl running across the picture. So you can put in like, really nice movement, kind of like figures in motion, which really looks nice. We probably could do that. Let's try putting a figure in. I'll try to paint this young girl here. Let's see if I can do it. So I will. So I'm going to take some yellow and red for flesh tone. So I'll make some flesh tone here. Yellow and red. Like that. And you know what? I'm not going to put the figure in right now. If anything, I would put a standing figure, like kind of just standing straight, like very subtle. Maybe someone reading a newspaper in front of the building or something. But since I just didn't put a figure in from the beginning, I don't want to try to put it in now. So that's usually a good rule of thumb. If you want to put figures in your painting, please draw them in before you start your painting so that it's in there and you're kind of thinking of it the whole time you're painting. You'll be painting around it most likely and putting, more detail with your figure into your painting as you're working. So that's just something where I didn't think of putting in a figure on this painting, but I enjoy putting figures in. I think it really livens up paintings and makes them look beautiful. But we're just kind of sticking with a beautiful facade of a building, more of an architectural type, rendering. That's kind of just, having fun, getting some really nice washes and things on here and some really good details with the finishing touches of the trees and so forth. But I hope you had a great time painting with me. We're going to come back and do more paintings like this. And, if you really like these type of paintings, always leave me some comments in the comments section. Let me know. Thumbs up always lets me know you like the videos and you want to see more videos like this. And I always mention, too, please subscribe. We're always here painting every week. week after week, month after month, and year after year. We're doing everything watercolors, and we even change up and do a little bit of, again, the ink and wash is something we do once in a while, but we do all kinds of landscapes, flower paintings, beach scenes, seascapes, boats, again, everything, still life paintings, a little bit of portrait work once in a while with some figure work. So we do everything here, watercolor. Glad you again joined us, and we're going to see you on the next video. See you soon.